Almadakiapi Kola, Yuha, Ichicha, Ani, Buju. I want to send greetings to everyone out there in AM 950 listening land, whether you're in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, or anywhere in the listening area, and of course, anywhere online where because of you, we broadcast to thousands of listeners, and sometimes that number goes up, sometimes that number goes way up. But this is Native American Patriot Talk. This is episode 6, season 1. I'm going to do one season of this iteration, which is called Native American Patriot Talk. And if you've listened to any of the previous episodes, we try to impart to our listeners why this project is necessary and who it's powered by. When we're talking about AM 950 radio, they're called the progressive voice of Minnesota. And then we have our partners who nudged me and who let me know that this was possible, and that's Native Roots Radio. It's because of Native Roots Radio that, and this is independent media, that you can find Native American Patriot Talk anywhere that you podcast. And we urge you to download. We urge you to leave a review. Check out our partners, of course. And if you're interested in sponsoring, please hit us up. I did talk to a friend of mine about sponsorship, and I'll announce one of his products later in the show. But I'm trying to create 80% evergreen material, meaning that 20% will be based off of what is happening right in front of our eyes and what the regime is telling us not to believe, and 80% will hopefully be material and substance that our listeners, the people who know that progressives will win, that our listeners can take with them and equip themselves and enhance their consciousness. And whether that's political consciousness or even all forms of consciousness, for me, are based in spiritual consciousness. So it starts with who we are as spiritual beings, as human beings. And that, as soon as we demand that of ourselves, and then we're going to demand political and social and economic justice and equity, even though the other side, so to speak, and by other side, I don't mean the team that wears red as opposed to the team that wears blue. I'm talking about people who are anti-progressive, people who made it a bad word to say things like equity. Think of diversity, equity, inclusion. Somehow it's anathema, however you say that word, to speak of those matters, just like what they did with and they, again, they is a force. They are a part of an embodiment of tyrannical corporate favoring forces that have been around for a long time. And I have to back out when I catch myself engaging in this dynamic of, the force binary in our country, that you can only win if you're red or blue. But progressive is not red or blue. Sometimes the blue guys are not as progressive as we need them to be. And so we have to keep pushing, because what was seen as normalcy, what was seen, and we've covered this, what we've known as the constitutional and civil decorum in this country has been destroyed. It's been dissipated. We're now living in this strange, bizarro world where kayfabe, which we covered in episode number 5, which is political theatrics. How in the world? And for an example, how could President Trump survive 3 assassination attempts? He the most sought after target for would-be blooper assassins. Like these are lame, in my opinion. But they're pushed out into the mainstream narrative as fact, and they're meant to galvanize people, to galvanize not only the MAGA base, but also to cause folks to pause. And if you pay attention to what, like, the White House press secretary is saying, what Trump is saying, what guys like Elon Musk are saying, they vilify and demonize the entirety of the left. And for these forces, progressive people are squarely within the left-leaning political spectrum in our country. So we've seen this. If you pay attention, you've seen the words to maybe be learned and informed about how we treat each other in our country, in the diversity of the United States of America. You've seen that labeled as political correctness, and people are afraid to say things because will that violate some politically correct norm? That, this is that demographic telling it to itself that this thing, treating people with respect, is political correctness. And then you watched it evolve or regress to woke. I remember when it was cool to say woke. I'm getting woke. I'm woke about my circumstance, my situation, politically, socially, economically, etc. We thought of ourselves. I identified with that because I thought that meant we were on a trajectory of improving our relations. And now that word, that's how meme culture works, because the human attention span is so short. All they've got to do is take over one word and obscure the meaning of one word, and lump everybody that they see as their political enemies, their declared political enemies, into what they label as the radical left, what they label as Antifa, what they label as shooters who attend No Kings rallies. And they try to use that to say that the left is stoking political violence. And there's no mention, and that's what we get, is this dynamic where one side actually instigates insurrectionist political violence and murders police officers and American citizens who are guarding the hallowed chambers and symbols of our state, the United States of America, of our nation state. You have MAGA is killing those people. January 6, 2021. Political violence was instigated, but there's no mention of that. All we have now is, if these, I don't know if these I don't want to get too far deep into whether or not these are deliberate, politically motivated engagements, these assassination attempts, which I don't think are real. I've said that before on this show about what happened in Utah. Sorry, that's the Charlie Kirk assassination. Information comes out way later, after nobody's paying attention, that what the federal government is saying happened that day could not possibly be the case. Put an asterisk and go read about Leonard Peltier to find out, the lengths to which human beings will go to deceive the American public, and to hide the truth, and to never even think twice whether people find out about it. And then you have the ear, the bloody ear, with everybody wearing the bandage over their ear after Trump allegedly survived the first assassination attempt. Go review all the footage, review some other takes about that, because the mainstream push is that Trump's a hero. He has the presence of mind to turn it into, a politically, or a picturesque moment, where he's raising his fist. That's another usurpation of those symbols, where a demographic that formerly may have oppressed other demographics takes the symbols of resistance from the real oppressed folks and usurps and co-ops that for its own purposes, tries to make itself the victim. And we see that in our country. And then you have, the Mar-a-Lago assassination attempt, and then this most recent one. But look into those. You make up your own mind. It's very difficult for me to trust anything that comes out of mainstream. That's why we preach to the American public to inform yourself, to look out for what's going on right in your neighborhood, right in your city, in your state. But for this show, I wanted to spend some time on a deep dive, something that I got into when I went to Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the beginning of the ICE occupation. I began to listen to a book. I can't remember. I was at a conference somewhere, and somebody gave me a book. It's a tiny little book, but it's called, the title is On Tyranny. And the book, it's also an audiobook. It's written by a man named Tim Snyder. And I haven't really watched Mr. Snyder's presentations or anything that's available on YouTube, but there probably is a plethora of things. In fact, I know there is. But Tim Snyder represents, he's a fellow of the Andrew Carnegie Foundation. And I believe that's the nonprofit arm of, I don't know what Carnegie is. I think he's a steel magnate. He's one of the barons, or the people in the 1850s, the railroad, the steel, the oil, the industries that really launched America into superpower status, or prepared it for that status leading up to and following World War II. But if you have a guy like Tim Snyder, who I don't know his history, but he's writing about tyranny. And it's not only Tim Snyder. I found, there's another source from Harvard and from Yale, and from a group called Kettering. So there are another podcast out there who describes 7 ways anyone can fight authoritarianism. That's kettering.org. And of course, Robert Reich, who's kind of like, I would say, an establishment DNC friendly personality, kind of like Obama, right? Or Clinton. They're kind of like mainstays in the DNC world, which for me is nowhere near progressive enough for someone like me. But Tim Snyder wrote about 20 different points that kind of describe describe how to recognize and how to address tyrannical impositions into our daily lives. So let's just start with number 1. Now, this is coming from Tim Snyder, and I'll just offer some commentary of my lived experience. But number 1 is, do not obey in advance. So most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given, like the Alice Walker quote of, we give up 100% of the power that we don't recognize that we have. And in times like these, what we're going through in this country, in Trump's second term, individuals are sometimes thinking ahead about how to bow down to a more repressive government. And these are folks who are not politically conscious, or they're only conscious with respect to their emotions, their biases, and who their leaders tell them are their political enemies. And so they give up a lot of power without any force being applied whatsoever. So when ICE comes to your city, and if you don't chase them out, like Bob Marley chasing some crazy bald heads out, if you don't chase them out, then you're teaching that the Bovinos and the Christy Gnomes and the Hegseths, and now the Markwayne Mullins of the world, that you as a populace, that we as a populace, we the people, will tolerate this unlawful, unwarranted intrusion into our lives, this violent intrusion into our lives, or this unconstitutional intrusion into our lives. It's the same with every single parking lot that I go to now that has since ICE received 70 billion or 40 billion or whatever. I can't keep track of the exact numbers, but I noticed that the cities that I travel to now, there are surveillance towers in a lot of the parking lots, and you just get out of your car and you'll hear something on the loudspeaker, a robotic voice, an AI voice come over the loudspeaker and say, this is legal notice that this area is being surveilled for your safety. And that means, I mean, the level of tech they got, not only with facial recognition, but all of the license plates scanning, the level of things that they're imposing and wanting us to be comfortable with is out of hand. ICE in airports. That's another a symbolic and real imposition, an encroachment on the civic status, or the the decorum that we're used to. Where this is how they make those little moves. So number two, defend institutions. So don't obey in advance. Number two, defend institutions. It's the institutions of law, of law making, of law interpretation, the courts, and institutions of education, media, and so forth that help us preserve this constitutional and civic decorum. The institutions need your help. Don't speak of them unless you're willing to defend them. Institutions do not protect themselves. So choose an institution you care about and take its side. Again, this comes from On Tyranny. And some of my examples are like your schools. Defend your schools, your institutions of education, your libraries, your independent news media that where the truth is already a premium. You can't pay attention to all the distractions that are going on online right now, or however you get your quote unquote news and things that come out on official channels, like the White House's official channels, or anytime our officials are doing briefings, we should be very, very careful and be thinking in terms of how are they propagandizing? How are they monetizing? I mean, you don't have to look very far to see how Trump is monetizing and commodifying the entirety of the presidency, and making people pay for access, with just like with this Trump Bitcoin, this recent party that he held at Mar-a-Lago, where I mean they're just ripping people off in a way that is unethical. But I mean, if it's illegal, nobody's doing anything about it because we're not defending our institutions. Our Congress doesn't have an enforcement arm. Maybe that's something we should think about. Number three, beware of the one-party state. And some people would argue that we're already in a one-party state within the force binary of the red and blue, because no matter what kind of culture war we're fighting with each other, whether you're red or blue, you're fighting over religious dictates, like of the Christian caliphate, you might say, that speak to somebody's spiritual sense or moral sense, and that's all you can think about. You're just blinded by what you think about your religion or the dictates of how you're supposed to live your life, and your willingness to impose that on other people. Well, that sounds like Islamic fundamentalism. It's just in our country. That's what that sounds like. So some would say we're already in a one-party state, but what Tim Snyder is meaning is that the parties that remade states and suppressed rivals were not omnipotent from the start. They exploited a historic moment to make political life impossible for their opponents. So support the multi-party system and defend the rules of democratic elections. Yes, obviously, when I went to Denmark, they have a parliamentary system. So there is no forced binary. If your party wins a certain percent of the vote at the election, your party is assigned that a pro rata share of the House of Parliament. So the one-party state, for me, that means that the corporate tyrannical state that is represented by the elites of both parties. And I don't look at MAGA as my political enemy. I just look at most of MAGA as unconscious folks who are being manipulated by master ringleaders, circus ringleaders. And they're just like how I look at my working class families, my fellow American families, who I understand. I understand their lives because my life is their life. Their life is my life. They're not political enemies. They're people who we cannot give up on. It doesn't mean that we have to turn the other cheek when we're having illegal and unconstitutional violence inflicted on us. It just means that we don't have to engage in that level of demonization. It's enough that the other side, quote unquote, is a radical, rogue, and racist fringe. That's enough. They're acting outside the scope of American constitutional authority. But number 4, take responsibility for the face of the world. The symbols of today enable the reality of tomorrow. Notice the swastikas or the MAGA hats or the Patriot Front marches of Nazi leaning politics that go unchecked. Nobody's law enforcement certainly doesn't check them the way they check the anti-ICE or pro-constitution protests. They just it seems like law enforcement is facilitating the racist, radical, rogue fringe in this country who show up with the swastikas, who show up with obvious and blatant signs of hate. You don't look away from those people. In South Dakota, we were ready to engage these guys, and was that wise? I don't know. But they didn't announce where they were going to be, and they showed up at the Capitol building in South Dakota one time. These, I don't know if it's Patriot Front, whatever they are, these people that say that they're the "Don't Tread on Me" crowd, right? Meanwhile, the racist, radical, rogue fringe is treading all over our constitutional rights and American constitutional sovereignty. Number 5, remember your professional ethics. When political leaders set a negative example, think of Trump and Hegseth, professional commitments to just practice become important. It is hard to subvert a rule of law state without lawyers or to hold show trials without judges. Authoritarians need obedient civil servants, and concentration camp directors seek businessmen interested in cheap labor. Okay, well, remember your ethics, and remember your constitutional duties. Remember, you, like our great military leader said, I can't remember his name, that we serve the Constitution of the United States. We do not serve a king, a wannabe dictator, a despot. And so you, as an American citizen, even an American soldier, that you have a duty to defend American families from tyranny, from all enemies, foreign and domestic. You, as an American soldier, have the lawful ability to disobey unconstitutional orders, just like the swath of congressional reps had recommended and were targeted for. And number 6, be wary of paramilitaries. When the men with guns who have always claimed to be against the system start wearing uniforms and marching around with torches and pictures of a leader, like they did in Charlottesville, the end is nigh. When the pro-leader paramilitary and the official police and military intermingle, the end has come. Some would argue that this is the case in ICE right now. Where are all the Proud Boys? Where are the Oath Keepers? Where are the people, the Patriot Front? Were they recruited by ICE? Now, ICE is not as racialized as I would like to propagandize about, because a lot of ICE is just the same way we recruit for the military. It's disenfranchised, financially disempowered people who don't see and who don't have any other way out of the trench. How could you say no to a $50,000 sign-on bonus, even though it's coming from Trump and he's probably going to rip you off? How could you say no to that when you're absolutely struggling? But what we're saying, what Tim Snyder is saying, what everybody, Robert Reich, everybody from the mainstream to the most progressive of progressives, is saying, be conscious right now because tyranny is at your door. It's kicking the door down. It's not coming. It's not contemplated. It's not on its way. It is at our door right now, and we have to be conscious and we have to see each other as relatives. Again, this is AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered. My show, Native American Patriot Talk, is powered by Native Roots Radio, and I want to thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more, if you want to dig in and support the good fight, we not only urge you to support Native Roots Radio and 950 AM Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, but please, you are invited to become a member of Lakota People's Law Project. This is an initiative of the Sacred Defense Fund, all Native led, all Native board organization, a vehicle to assert and defend those truths that we hold to be self-evident and those inalienable rights, all conceivable tribal and American constitutional sovereign rights. We are in the fight for the long haul. Sometimes we've had to get in good trouble. To join the fight in solidarity, go to action.lakotalaw.org, subscribe to our lists, and gain membership.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
How Medakya Bikola, Yuha Chichab Ake, Lilataya Wachiankapalo, Ani Buju. I send greetings to everybody in AM 950 listening land, everybody who's tuning in via Native Roots Radio or Lakota People's Law Project. Anybody who's tuned in with us, thank you for indulging this, giving us a little bit of your time and your energy and your precious power, the potency of who you are as a human being. This is episode number 6 of Native American Patriot Talk, and I'm going to get right into it because we were going through On Tyranny by Tim Snyder, and I got through the first 6, but I want to get through these. I always bite off more than I can chew whenever I come to address what I want to address, the threats to our Republican form of government, the threats to constitutional order, the violence that is being instigated, has been instigated against American citizens pretty much since the founding of this country. It's America is a very controverted. It's the greatest experiment in the world. In terms of the loftiness and the goals of the founding fathers. A lot has happened. And even though some of the founding fathers didn't envision a future which included me, which included somebody like me being able to say, I'm the patriot. I don't know what Patriot Front or these the Don't Tread on Me crowd are talking about, but I'm the true patriot. And what I mean by that is that we've, through blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, and martyrdom, we've arrived at this place where the rights, privileges, and immunities of American citizenship inhere in a multitude of people. But those multitudes are not as civically engaged as they need to be. But anyway, let me go back to the book because we'll never get through it if I just start commentary. So Be reflective if you must be armed, meaning if you carry a weapon in the line of duty or in public service, i.e., you're a soldier or a cop, God bless you and keep you. But know that the evils of the past involve policemen and soldiers finding themselves one day being ordered to do unlawful or irregular things. Think of the concentration camps, not the ones from World War II, but the ones in Alcatraz, the ones in Seminole Country, the hundreds and thousands of warehouses that are being bought up to store hundreds and thousands of captured human beings. Be ready to say no. Be ready to not obey unlawful or unconstitutional orders. This is the idea of cleaning house at the federal level. This is what Doge was all about, is to get loyalists in there who will not question. Career feds are not going to care about, whether if Trump issues an unlawful order, it's career federal officials, pillars of those institutions, who are going to have the fortitude to say no, can't do it. But you get these young people in there or loyalists, they're going to carry out Trump's illegal orders. They already are. Look at what's happening. Number 8, stand out. Someone has to. It's easy to follow along. It can feel strange to do or say something different. But without that unease, there is no freedom. Remember Rosa Parks. The moment you set an example, the spell of the status quo is broken and others will follow. Yes, absolutely. You got to be conscious and you got to be brave. You got to be willing to assert yourself and protect, the rights that inhere in you as an American citizen. Number 9, be kind to our language. Avoid pronouncing the phrases everyone else does. Think up your own way of speaking, even if only to convey that thing you think everyone is saying. Make an effort to separate yourself from the internet. Okay, yeah. Be kind to our language. Avoid pronouncing the phrase. Don't engage in hive think where you don't really need to. Try with everything you have to think critically and to recognize when your emotions and your prejudices or your complexes and your biases might be pulling you in a certain direction. And for me, that's even for me. Number 10, believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, then no one can criticize power because there is no basis upon which to do so. If nothing is true, then all is spectacle. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. This is go to episode number 5 and learn about kayfabe, because this is exactly what, remember the first utterances of fake news. That's what this is designed to do, is to cut at the American public's ability to distinguish between what is true. Used to be that whatever's coming out of official channels could be taken as truth. That is not the case anymore. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights because of the Santa Ana Railroad case, which granted corporate personhood, the same kind of personhood that you and I, living human beings, divine flesh and blood human beings, enjoy. It granted personhood to corporations, and then Citizens United granted to corporations the right to buy elections and say that that's protected speech. That's like our free speech right. So things are twisted. Number 11, investigate. Figure things out for yourself. Spend more time with long articles, subsidize investigative journalism by subscribing to print media, subsidize AM 950 radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, because we're the realists. Realize that some of what is on the internet is there to harm you or to rage bait you. Learn about sites that instigate propaganda campaigns, some of which obviously come from abroad. Cambridge Analytica, Russia. Take responsibility for what you communicate to others. Okay, 11, investigate. 12, make eye contact in small talk. How is that helping us fight tyranny? Well, we're humanizing each other. We're seeing each other as relatives. Now, these are Tim Snyder's words now. This is not just polite to make eye contact in small talk. It is part of being a citizen and a responsible member of society. It is also a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and should not trust. If we enter a culture of denunciation, you will want to know the psychological landscape of your daily life. Well, humanize and make relatives of each other. Make eye contact and small talk. We're in your neighborhoods, wherever you're at, learn who the people are, learn, who might be vulnerable. This is what Minneapolis and St. Paul did. They protected their city. They protected their neighbors. Number 13, practice corporal real politics. Power wants your body softening in your chair and your emotions dissipating on the screen. Wow. Softening in your chair and your emotions is dissipating on the screen. I feel called out right now, Tim Snyder. Get outside. Put your body in unfamiliar places with unfamiliar people. Make new friends and march with them. So get your, don't just engage in scrolling and liking and sharing and tagging and all that stuff, which is hugely important. We need you to do that. Independent media needs you to do that. But take it a step further. Go to your local microbrewery. Go to your local immigrant-owned restaurants. Go to the local powwow. Even if you're not native, go to the local powwow and see the vibrancy and the connective tissue that make us who we are as Americans. Number 14, establish a private life. Nastier rulers will use what they know about you to push you around. Scrub your computer of malware. Remember that email is skywriting. Consider using alternative forms of the internet or of communications, or simply using it less. Have personal exchanges in person for the same reason. Yeah, that's a big one, because if you saw the 22-point manifesto coming out from Palantir, it is demonic. It is nefarious. If you pay attention to Lord of the Rings or Hobbit, Tolkien, Palantir is that little crystal ball that the evildoers use to predict the future, to see the future, to monitor and surveil all of their enemies, all of the good guys. So Palantir, that's what the name means, and you should look into it, because I don't know, I can't tell you quickly enough. Think of Elon Musk, think of Peter Thiel, the Silicon Bros, the South Africans. These are Afrikaners. These are the sons of apartheid, the sons of the racialized apartheid in South Africa, which imprisoned Nelson Mandela for 27 years. These are their sons who have come to America and have captured power. I don't want to say they captured the entirety of the executive branch, because they captured it long enough to get whatever they needed from it. When Doge was a thing, they captured tons of data. We don't even know the level of exposure that we've already suffered. But you see Palantir getting no bid contracts just recently. USDA, $300 million. They're already making all of the munitions, and all of their software is being deployed for war purposes. So anyway, like, the internet is a strange place. Yes, it's a double-edged sword. Just know that those guys are seeing everything that we do. Now, number 15, contribute to good causes. Be active in organizations, political or not, that express your own view of life. Pick a charity or two and set up autopay. I come from the nonprofit world, so yes, please do that. Please contribute to AM 950, Native Roots Radio, Lakota Law. Be active, or in wherever you're at, wherever you live, be active. Learn from peers in other countries. Keep up your friendships abroad. This is when I did an Italian podcast. They had a live memory of when Mussolini was alive, and they look at what we're going through in our country, and they're like, they're pitying us. They're sending their encouragement. Make new friends abroad. The present difficulties in the U.S. are an element of a larger trend. That's absolutely true. Look at what's happening in the U.K. And no country is going to find a solution by itself. Make sure you and your family have passports, I guess, so you can leave. But you know what? We can't leave. Natives, this is our land. This is our place. And we're saying, look, at United States of America, anybody who wants to realize the full potentials of the rights, privileges, and immunities of what it means to be in our homeland, you can be here. That's why we signed treaties with you. Let's not run from these bastards or bastages. Sorry. Let's not run from them. We cannot run from the fight. So, number 17, listen for dangerous words. Be alert to the use of words of extremism and terrorism. Just read all the press material that's coming out after this recent assassination attempt. The left is violent. The left is extreme. Progressives are terrorists. Read it for yourself. Be alive to the fatal notions of emergency and exception. Be angry about the treacherous use of patriotic vocabulary. This is why this show is the Native American Patriot Talk Show. Because they don't own that term. Why would they get to put on or receive the benefit of perceived legitimacy just because they're calling themselves patriots? I'm a patriot too. And if you've listened this far, you're probably a patriot as well. But a patriot respects and protects their rights, privileges, and immunities, and more importantly, almost their homeland. A patriot doesn't allow corporate tyranny or AI big data centers to come and destroy our children's future. They don't allow that. So take those words back. Listen for those, how they're co-opting and usurping those words. 18, be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Tyranny is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, meaning false flag. Remember that authoritarians exploit such events in order to consolidate power. Look at 9/11. Look at the Patriot Act. Look at the National Defense Authorization Act. Look at what has happened in the surveillance state alone since 9/11. Do not fall for the false flag is what 18 says. Number 19, be a patriot. Set a good example of what America means for the generations to come. Absolutely. There's a big difference between patriot and nationalist, and you have to remember to be a patriot. Number 20, be courageous as you can. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die under tyranny. Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Okay, so we spent some time on tyranny. Now I have a little bit left, and the listeners have engaged and have lived through certain experiences where this tyrannical corporate force that is imposing on your daily lives is apparent. Now I want to spend some time talking about the tyranny of extraction that I've experienced, that I know Native Roots Radio has experienced since the Stand with Standing Rock. Now, it's been 10 years since the Standing Rock No DAPL and Water Protector movement. We named it then Extractive Tyranny, the existential threat to indigenous peoples and all Americans is front and center. And we were right. We are now being vindicated. And the machine is moving faster right now with no brakes and demonic evil forces trying to grease the wheels and facilitate the destructions of our homelands. Look at the boundary waters. I don't have to go into every single example. Just look at the pattern. Peshla, the heart of the Black Hills, the ceremonial center of the Sioux Nation. The Forest Service just now approved exploratory graphite drilling there in February, and it's happening right now. A company called Pete Lean, is doing this over tribal objections. No environmental review there. There was something called a categorical exclusion, which comes from the National Environmental Protection Act or Policy Act. This is half a mile from one of our most sacred sites in existence. 50 miles south, the Dewey Burdock uranium mine, 50 miles from Pine Ridge. The same uranium mine, the Oglala Sioux tribe has fought for 20 years to stop this, has now been fast-tracked by Trump and Mr. Doug Burgum's, oversight. There's being irreparable harm is being done in the name of profits, in the name of the extractive tyranny. And the Trump administration on April Fool's Day was dead serious, announcing that they were going to undo 20 years of protections for public lands around Chaco Canyon National Historic Park. I had a chance to visit that a couple weeks ago. 1/3 of a million of acres previously protected from new oil and gas drilling has been lifted. And Chaco Canyon, it's like one of the wonders of the world. You should look it up, Chaco Canyon. No, the native people built that. Everything on Ancient Aliens, native people probably built that, my friends. Think about it. Anyway, Trump and the administration, the racist, rogue, radical fringe is doing damage. The Rio Arriba County in New Mexico, the Carson National Forest, the Chama watershed. Now, this is apart from Chaco Canyon, but a Vancouver company, Gamma Resources, filed to drill for uranium on ancestral land and described it to their investors as low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit. That's what we should zero in on that. Because these are not separate stories. These are one coordinated assault on American and Native American land, water, and sovereign rights. It's the same extractive forces who know those communities, those blocks, those demographic blocks that are least equipped to assert their rights and defend their rights. And those are the folks that they will force to live in the sacrifice zone. We saw this at Standing Rock. We didn't ask for that fight. The tyranny of the corporate state continues to invade all of our collective rights, and they will continue to invade and usurp and intercede and interfere with the full enjoyment and the rights, privileges, and immunities that we enjoy as American citizens. They will continue to encroach upon those and eradicate those until they have the tech surveillance state where nobody can dissent. If you're paying attention, you read Palantir's 22-point manifesto, which I thought I'd be able to do the tyranny 20 points and also Palantir's 22 points in this very precious, quick, and powerful 50-some minutes that we have together. But you're going to have to look up Palantir's manifesto on your own because it's insidious. It is dangerous. It's going to make your skin crawl. But recognize that these forces are there, and you have to connect the dots, whether it's about the tyranny of extraction related to uranium, oil, gas, cobalt, lithium, graphite. It's not just about native land. It's about who gets treated with respect and who is forced to live in a sacrifice zone. Now, if you find yourself fighting corporate tyranny because you don't want to drink cancerous water, then you're on our side. If you find yourself fighting the private sale of 75 million acres of public land, like we just saw public land being offered to the highest bidder. We see that under the current Secretary of the Interior. If you want America's public lands to be in American hands and unspoiled and unpoisoned, then we're on the same side. It's not just about native land. It's about, can our children drink the water that is flowing on Mother Earth in our country right now? So if you find yourself wanting clean air that you can breathe, then maybe we're on the same side. If you find yourself valuing the Wamakashka, the hunting and fishing economies, the tourist economies, which require the integrity and the beauty of a landscape, then maybe we should think twice about folding up and backing down when the biggest corporations, the most tyrannical of forces, come in and try to destroy our water resources, like in the border waters, or any, just look at big data, what's happening with AI and Palantir. It's all connected, and we urge you to stay connected. This is AM 950 Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, Native American Patriot Talk, powered by Native Roots Radio. Thank you so much for listening, tuning in, and connecting with us.